Hey guys, what is up? My name is Stephen Tamman, and today I'm going to be talking about the Amazon order that I'm going to be placing. So in the last video that I made, talking about the organization of things I'm going to be doing the next couple weeks, I said that I was going to just go ahead and every time I make an Amazon order or do anything like that, I'm going to try to just make a quick video summarizing the thoughts off the top of my head as to why I'm doing the things I'm doing. So some of this is for me, so I can come back later and reference these things. If I get asked about it, or someone asks, "Hey, you got that thing? Why'd you get this one over that one?" Or what was your thought process or something? I can just be like, "Here, go look at this." But some of it also is just for me personally, so that I can remember, in a year's time, why'd I buy that thing? Did I have good reasons for it? And then, of course, making myself do this also restrains any sort of impulse buying because, well, I'm just forcing myself to think things through a little. So you'll get a snapshot of my process. I do tend to be a pretty research heavy person. So, as you see up here in the browser, there's quite a few links. And this was just me, over the last, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes, just compiling the research that I knew I needed to do to make the decisions that I'm going to go through today. So I'm just going to go in order. This will probably be pretty rapid fire here, but it's probably the best way for me to do this. And then I will try to post links down in the description of this video of the things that I actually did decide on. So the first thing I want to talk about is these things, the flushable wet wipes. So I was reading an interesting article about this company in the UK that actually makes wet wipes that are safe to flush. Now, I knew this from experience that if you look on the backs of many wet wipes, like the ones that you'd get to, I don't know, clean your hands before you eat or things like that, many of them have polypropylene in them, which is a form of plastic, and they don't biodegrade. And so there's actually been a huge, huge issue with consumers flushing these down the plumbing systems in urban areas, and you get these things called fatbergs. Um, and so I have this Wikipedia article about these things pulled up right here. And, there's been a few of these in big urban areas, like I think wet wipes, I don't quote me on this, but I think they may be more common in the UK than in the United States, because you can see many of these many of these examples that show up on the Wikipedia page are London, or Chelsea, and then Melbourne, Australia, Wales, mid Wales. I think that's the UK. At any rate, it seems like they just may have, statistically more people may use them there. But I was intrigued in the concept just because, in terms of personal hygiene, I think they make a lot of sense. However, doing my research, I was having a hard time coming up with things that had like independent third party verification of, yes, when you flush this down the toilet, you're not gonna contribute to creating one of these uh, in your urban area, because it turns out that a lot of the manufacturers of these, well, they are incentivized to a profit, and making wet wipes that hold together so that don't fall apart upon use is harder than it sounds with just normal natural materials. And so if you stick a bit of plastic fibers in them, well, they hold together. But the problem is they hold together for decades even, because the plastic doesn't degrade as organic, natural plant-based materials do. But it's also stronger, more rigid, which means it plugs drains easier. It gets stuck in pipes easier. So at any rate, the manufacturing companies for the products are not highly incentivized to make the wipes easy to degrade, because basically it's not their problem. Now the people whose problem it is are the water companies, the people who have to maintain the plumbing systems in these urban areas. And so a whole big coalition of them. I mean, so the manufacturing companies have their interest groups and their lobbyists who go pressure politicians and such, and so do the water people. And so what I was trying to find is, hey, is there a wet wipe that the water people can get behind? Because they're the ones, that's good. From a consumer standpoint, they're the ones who are going to be skeptical of these products. And so if you can find a group of them that get behind a product, then you can be more confident that that product actually does what it's saying it's going to do. Marketing aside, because a whole bunch of companies market their wipes as flushable, but sure, you can flush them down the toilet. But the problem is, if you're creating this huge environmental mess by doing so, then in my opinion, that's not really flushable. And so if they don't regulate that word, by regulate, I mean like the government agencies who might say, like that's dishonest marketing, or, like it must meet certain standards. If that's not the case, then companies will just slap it on everything because, it sounds good, right? But I was trying to do my research to make sure I'm not contributing to this issue here. And so there's this brand in the UK, Nature Care, Safe to Flush, whatever, that, well, just as I said, was actually backed by Water UK. I think this is like one of the coalitions of, well, actually, I don't want to just make things up, but I mean, you can read on this page. They are one of the water groups, not one of the wipes manufacturers. And they got behind these, saying that, yea, verily, they actually do degrade and they don't lead to the plugs that other things do. So there's a very long, rambly way of saying that I was going to buy wet wipes and try them out, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't, messing with the environment or causing these big blockages for the plumbing systems. Now, this is a good example of why I don't lock myself into just Amazon. So I am an Amazon Prime subscriber. I do buy tons of stuff on Amazon. It's probably where I shop most. Just side note here, I don't want to get super distracted, but one of the reasons why I do this is because I can sit in my pajamas like I am this morning and just Google, hey, I want to buy this thing. And then a minute later, I've got a bunch of results, and you can sort by reviews and number of stars, and I can read what other people say right in front of me. I have all this feedback as a consumer that you don't get in a store if you're just looking at products. And the other big, huge time-saving thing that you get is that I can do it instantly. I can search for a product using the power of Google or just Amazon's normal search bar, and I find it in 3-4 seconds, and then 2 days later it magically shows up on my doorstep, versus me having to go walk through a store to find something. And it's not that I'm terribly directionally challenged, but you have to look at the signs in the store, and sometimes what you would think would end up in one section just because of whatever reason ends up in a different section. So, you might think, oh, it'd be in the outdoors section, and then you go look for like a hose or something, and oh, well, it turns out it was in like the automotive section because people use hoses when they wash their car. And so someone thought that was logical, but if it's not what you thought was logical, suddenly now you've wasted 15 minutes trying to go find the blasted hose in the store. Whereas if you shop online, all of that goes away. Anyway, so to pull back to this, you can see that, well, unfortunately, they don't have I don't want to go buy 16 packs of these things before I'm sure that they actually work well and that it's a worthy investment and stuff. That's just risk management on my part. It sounds good. I have, good logic, good reasons why I want to do these over others, right? But I'd rather try a pack first before I go spend, $60 versus like $5. But unfortunately, the options here on Amazon, well, one of them I could get for like $5, but then I have to pay shipping. And the other one with free shipping is like $10 for a pack of 30, which is not great. Like that's how much it is per 100. So yeah, that's not so good. I live in the Southeast, which means Kroger's around. And well, guess what? I just Googled. So shippers that I think can compete with Amazon, I'm a big fan of competition in the open market. Walmart has gotten their shipping infrastructure quite a bit better recently, so that they have pretty competitive 2-day shipping with Amazon on many things. And Kroger's not too bad either. And any of these big companies that have, sort of deep pockets and wide logistics chains, they do shipping pretty well. So it turns out that Kroger has these things. And so this is probably where I'm actually going to end up buying them. So I know I said Amazon order for this video, but well, there you go. I don't buy everything on Amazon. So I bought stuff off Walmart's website and off Target's website as well. Just kind of whatever happens to have the items I want, cheaper or in stock, because sometimes stuff runs out of stock on one of them. So that's just a quick note about not getting wedded to any one of them. See, much better prices here, and I still got to pay shipping, but it's like, I don't know, like $3 or $4 or something. So there you go. That's the wet wipe. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Next, and you'll see this is going to seem kind of, I don't know, like completely ADD, like none of these things are very related to each other, but this is what I meant by I let things pile up so that I order everything at once. So you could see, I don't like wait to get similar collections of things. This is just everything I'm buying, for that I've had on my list for maybe a month now, month and a half. So everything gets bundled together. And so sometimes you'll have rather strange neighbors in your orders. So like you see here, I'm buying wet wipes, but then I'm buying protein powder. Those things don't really go together, right? But so this is whey protein powder. I have been buying micellar casein from this particular Optimum Nutrition is pretty well regarded in the supplements community. Really, one of the reasons why I'm buying them is because if you can compare things by price. I actually didn't pull up that because I knew I wanted to buy this specifically, this brand, but normally I do a bunch of research. Like I just pull up the protein powders page on Amazon and look, okay, how expensive is this one relative to this one? And what's the quality like? And one of the big reasons here, again, not to get off in too big a tangent, why I'm going with this brand is just look at the number of reviews that they have here. And so you don't just want to look at stars, because if you have 5-star reviews, but there's only like 3 of them, that's not a good sample size statistically. But there's 100 and some odd thousand reviews here for this particular brand of protein powder, and most of them are positive. So as a rule of thumb, I'd say if you have a couple thousand, at least more than 1,000 reviews that are all greater than 4 stars, that product is likely to be good. Now, if they're all, if you have a high enough sample size of reviews and it's closer to 5 stars, and that product is likely to be very good, right? This is just heuristics, rule of thumb. Sometimes people might jump on the bandwagon and they'll all say this thing is great, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's great for what those people bought it for, but maybe it's not great for you. So you do have to think a little bit. But this is the power of Amazon. This is why I love Amazon. Not so much as a company. Not that I think they're particularly terrible, but just because of the platform of what they give to us as consumers, is that I can, using these heuristics of the stars and the ratings, I can make snap judgments. It takes a lot of the decision time off of me because other people have already done it. So all I have to do is go look and compare, and on their market page, and just go look at the options that are out there in the product space, and then pick the one that has the best ratings and the best stars, that meets my needs. So it makes decisions very easy. Anyway, all that aside, I decided I wanted to buy whey protein powder. So casein is what I had been using. Now I'm going to be a little bit hand wavy here, but casein takes a long time to digest. So both of these are dairy proteins, but casein, like I said, being hand wavy, kind of congeals a little bit, and you digest it slowly. So the benefit of this, and why I initially got it, because I thought, well, I don't know, I didn't come across a lot of very good, like double-blind, peer-reviewed scientific studies on this concept, but it makes logical sense to me. So if we say that casein takes a long time to digest, and it's a slow digesting protein, then that would tend to make you think that it keeps you full longer, right? And so one of the whole shticks of the nutrition thing that I've been trying is I've been trying to eat a lot of protein and a lot of fiber, so that I stay full for longer and I just end up eating less calories overall, right? So losing weight is primarily about sustaining a calorie deficit. And if you have things that make you feel full but don't net more calories, well, that's a good way to make a calorie deficit, right? So that's why I've done casein in particular. But I've started weightlifting. Not necessarily in the last month or whatever. I've been doing it a while now. But what Whey has, you can see I pulled up the page. I like this site a fair bit, Healthline. I find it reasonably unbiased. They try to quote science, and I don't think they have too terribly much of an industry lobby like influencing what they write. But they have pretty good introductory pages about types of proteins and macronutrients and even other things like supplements and stuff. So Healthline is what I'm looking at here. But whey protein is very much something that weightlifters do, bodybuilders, that sort of thing. And the reason for that is because whey is very high in these things here, branched chain amino acids, particularly leucine, which is one of these. I think it's leucine, isoleucine, and valine. But when you build muscle, protein is always said to be important for building muscle, but actually in particular, it's these things, the branched chain amino acids. So proteins are made up of amino acids. So different kinds of protein have different profiles of them. But whey is actually very high in these. Now you can buy branched chain amino acid supplements all on their own, but those things are actually like per ounce, they're super expensive. And the science isn't particularly great on, oh yes, if you just use branched chain amino acids, you're going to build so much more muscle, at least to my knowledge. I hope I'm not wrong here. But based on the studies I've seen, once you get enough of these, like you do need a certain threshold to get enough of these, but once you have enough, then it's mostly overall protein that drives muscle growth, muscle anabolism. But anyway, because whey is high in these, you can make sure that you're going to get enough of these, especially on lifting days. So the general plan that I'm at least thinking I'm going to follow here is on days when I'm not lifting weights. So, I maybe do it 3 times a week, bench, squat, deadlift, that sort of thing. Well, on those days, I'll drink, a whey milkshake after those, because that has all of the protein that's fast absorbing, and that has all these branched chain amino acids. And then on other days where I'm just trying to eat less calories overall, to sustain that calorie deficit, well, that's when I'll have the casein to keep myself full longer. So again, I don't know how much science you can actually find behind this. I did look because, like I said, it makes good intuitive sense to me, but I don't think I could actually find a lot of studies that said, oh yes, exactly what Steven's thinking here. Yes, we have data that supports that, but nonetheless, that's what I'm planning on doing. Oh, and I suppose when I should say milkshake. I am mixing these things with 1% milk, so I just don't like skim milk very well. I don't. I kind of want to enjoy how these things taste, and I'm reasonably fond of the taste of these from Optimum Nutrition. I believe they have. Yeah, it looks like they have. Where's the sweetener? Whatever. I think they have some form of sweetening in them because they taste pretty good. Not perhaps quite as great as like, if you go to a fast food place and you get like a chocolate smoothie, but not too far off that either. And so I don't find I have to like choke them down or anything. I actually enjoy how they taste if I use 1% or 2% milk. Skim milk to me, or just water. I mean, you can drink it with just water, but I mean, I don't think it tastes quite as good. So that's why I do 1% milk, which is reasonably good, high protein and carbs, you lower fat, even just in the 1% is pretty good. All right, so that's the protein powder. Like I said, these products are not related. So I sprayed my wrists pretty good mountain biking, I don't know, several months ago now. Not because I like fell off my bike and ran into a tree or anything, but just because I had a pretty big bump and my bike doesn't have full suspension. Now, that's something else, a topic for a different time. I am planning on getting a bike with full suspension eventually when I go mountain biking, but I jarred my wrist pretty good and it was pretty sore for a couple of weeks after that. So I was looking at wrist guards. Now I have wrist guards that I got for sprained wrists, earlier. These here, mine, it's good for what a wrist guard does, like it keeps your wrist relatively immobilized and helps it heal and recover and stuff. But the problem is, I don't know if you can see it from this picture, it like overlaps your palm, right? And so if you ever want to pick something up when you've got the wrist guard on, and for me specifically, if I want to grab my handlebars when I've got the wrist guard on my bike, it just gets in the way. So I looked and did a bunch of research, and this is used by not just mountain bikers, but also by people who do like motocross. These wrist guards here, this picture doesn't, I could go find more, I suppose, but these things are pretty cool because they do immobilize your wrist, on the up and down, vertical and lateral planes. However, they keep your palm completely free. I actually have gel gloves as well for reducing like impact on my palms. So, they have 5mm gel on the palms or so that I'm going to try to wear under these as well to help reduce some of the general forces going into my hands from the mountain bike, so that I don't get shaken to death. But I was really interested in this. It's got like a BOA system here, so that's how you tighten it. But this immobilizes your wrist, so prevents the overextension that leads to sprained wrists. It's progressive as well. So the tension ratchets up as you try to move your wrist more and more out of position, which means, you still have a little bit of give and flexibility, which is what you want when you're mountain biking. But while still leaving your palm completely free to grab things. So mountain biking and also just biking to work, I am planning on trying that soon. I don't know about all days a week, but at least sometimes. So if you fall off a bike and you're going 25 miles an hour, well, you can hurt your wrist pretty good too. I'm a computer programmer by my day, I'm a software engineer. And so I really don't want to break my wrist because that's my job. I have to type. And so I'm kind of paranoid about it, honestly. And maybe not quite to the degree that pianists are, but over along those lines. And so that's one of the reasons why I got very interested in these. Now, incidentally, this is going to seem completely random, but I'm also interested in using these when I do weightlifting stuff. So I do use easy curl bars when I'm doing like tricep extensions and bicep curls, but sometimes I still find that I have some wrist pain just because when I'm closer to muscle failure in some of the sets, I don't even want to say my form's terrible. It's just that like the once you fatigue the muscle groups, other muscle groups will get activated. They'll pick up the slack basically. And so I do find that sometimes my wrists ache a little bit when I'm doing weightlifting. Not so much deadlift squat, but more like the ancillary exercises. So maybe rows or curls or tricep extensions. And so I'm going to try wearing these when I lift as well. And the reason why I can do that, like I said, and what I've been harping on here, is because this particular kind of wrist guard lets you have your palms completely free. So it wraps around the back of your hand, which means that I'll still be able to grip stuff. And that's the key bit here, also for the weightlifting. So along with the sort of thing I mentioned initially with these, how I wasn't just going to go buy, get the prime shipping and buy the pack of 16 of these because that's kind of risky for me. Well, I do believe everything I've just said about these, and I watch reviews. I don't usually buy anything without finding some, seemingly reputable people who think it's a good idea, who recommend it, watch the reviews, read on the forums, all that stuff. I already did that for this, so I guess I didn't pull that up in this video, but some good, solid mountain biking channels have reviewed them, and it's not like a product without reviews that no one's ever done before. But I think the reasoning's pretty good here, but I've still kind of yet to test it completely. All right, so I knew I had a train of thought. What I was going to say was that just how I'm not buying a whole bunch of these at once to reduce my risk in this. So too, I'm only going to buy one of these, even though if I like it, even though they are either quite expensive, as you see, what's more expensive is breaking your wrist. So that's my logic here. I don't know, maybe people will think they're too expensive in that, but I'm only going to start with one to make sure I like it. Because if I don't like it, well, then I'm only out, less money than if I sprung for both before being sure. Because I can always buy another one after I determine if it's a good fit for me or not. All right, so that's the second one. There's the old one that is going to get replaced. So then I did mention biking to work. And so this is the thing that I did the most research on here. So I do have, the bike that I have now is not particularly cheap. It's not like a beater $400, $500 bike. It's something that I definitely want to protect and lock up. Now, I'm fortunate in that I work on an Air Force base. So when I'm on base, I'm still going to lock my bike, but like general theft, think like in the middle of New York City, not going to happen when you're on an Air Force base where you have to show ID even to get on base. So that comforts me a little bit, but I still want to get a good bike lock. And I already knew what I wanted coming into this pretty well because I'd already done research on this. I decided I wanted a U-lock. So you can get, I don't know if I have the page pulled up anymore. I did my research. I don't have all the pages up here. You can actually get various types of locks that are not, this standard shape that you might be expecting when you think bike locks. So you can get one that you kind of wear like a belt. It's not as rigid, it's flexible. And one cool thing about that is it actually lets you lock your bike to like lampposts and trees and stuff rather than just legit bike racks. I'm actually planning on locking my bike to a fence. Right, not a fence. It's like the side rails to the ramp that leads up to my building. Just because it's bike rack-esque. You can't remove it either. But it would be cool to just be able to lock it to anything around, like a lamppost or a tree or something, like I said. So that's a benefit of the flexible ones. But the downside is well, they're not quite as secure as 15 plus millimeters of hardened steel, right? So I decided I wanted a U-lock. When I'm riding to work, I need to bring my lunch and my gym clothes and my laptop on some days if I'm coming home to telework. So I need a backpack or panniers anyway. Now, long term, I'm probably going to get a rear rack on my bike to put panniers on it. But short term, I have a backpack. Backpacks are cheap. So I'm already going to have to be carrying something. So the fact that these U-locks are harder to transport and they weigh 3 or 4 pounds it's not great, but it doesn't faze me all that much. So I guess long way of saying that I was interested here in U-lock specifically. I already knew that I wanted the high security option. You can also get bike chains. This same brand here that makes the New York bike locks like this, they also make a chain. I think it's called like the Forget About It chain. But that thing weighs like 6 pounds or something. It's absolutely massive. And really, the only way you're going to get through this is with an angle grinder. And the only way you're going to get through the chain is with an angle grinder too. So if I can get a lock that has roughly the same security, but weighs like half as much, well, that's why I'm doing the U-lock rather than the big burly chain. But again, chain has similar advantages to the flexible ones that I was talking about earlier in that you can lock it to more things. So anyway, I decided up front that I wanted a U-lock then. And so then the question was, I always, like I said, I never just buy stuff. I never buy the first thing. I always go and do at least a 5-10 minute Google search where I go, like best bike lock. And you want to make sure that you're going to a site that is third party, a third party reviewer that's legit. So, I have no idea the general usefulness of this site. I've used bicycling.com. This is one of the big bike magazines. They're more likely to be impartial. They have a lot of professional writers here who this is their job. They're avid cyclists. They know what they're talking about, basically. So you see this brand gets mentioned all over the place. They're one of the big brands. And they make this series called the New York locks, New York, Manhattan specifically famous for getting bikes stolen. So this came up a couple of times. And so then I went and found them on Amazon. So here's one that is longer, it's got a 10 inches, but it's also heavier because of that. And then there's the standard one that's more like 8 inches internal. There's that one. And then one of the reviews on this one. So I always go through and read the reviews, the good and the bad both. Many of the bad reviews, some of them I don't want to say you can ignore, but it kind of depends. You have to look at the circumstances on it. But one of the reviews here I said was this guy comparing and contrasting this lock with I don't know if I'm saying this brand name, Abus. I think they're a German brand. So they're famous for making a folding lock. And I didn't really want the folding lock because I don't think it's quite as secure as these. So I knew I wanted a U-lock. But this is the sort of Amazon comment right here. So shout out to this guy here who these are the kind of reviews that are super helpful, where you're finding someone who is in a similar position as you, who is making a choice, and they say, you know what, I'm not sure, so let me go test the product, right? Informal, off the cuff, maybe not as rigid a testing structure as like professional testers. So actually, while I'm thinking about this, let me go give a plug out to a website here. If you've ever heard of this website here, I think it's run by the New York Times, but Wirecutter, the website here, they do pretty good reviews on a whole bunch of stuff. I can think of, actually, while I'm on the topic, I believe this site as well is another one that I used a lot. I used this when I bought my TV. I have a 65-inch 4K TV with low input lag that I use as my monitor, actually. And I did research here, and it was great because they had like a super, like here, best smart TVs, like super in-depth, like they hit all of the variables and they weight them, and they give you like the best if you're looking for cheap, the best if you're looking for high performance or whatever. So these are two sites that I can recommend just for general stuff. But like I said, I also pulled up the bicycling.com site here for when I was starting this. And, I mostly just type it into Google and make sure I'm reading from a reputable place. So anyway, long story short, I, found this guy's review and I said, okay, awesome. This guy thinks that these two are good bike locks. So let me compare and contrast those. So I went and found the lock he mentioned here from this brand. And you can see it's comparable price-wise, $119 versus $129. And then what I wanted to do was say, okay, so I found two U-locks in the sample space. How are these brands? Are there other brands considered better than these? How do these brands stack up comparing to each other? So that's where I went after this in my research. And I found this, and then I don't know, you can kind of tell if it looks like a site trying to sell you stuff. I'm not saying this site is, it's informational. They've got this, I don't know. Let me scratch that thought. I think this site's fine. It's a comparison, but I wanted to find more. And then I came across this site. I think I found this one before. Actually, I like this one a lot because they talk about testing processes and stuff. The third party, I don't think company is quite the right word, but like the people who test bike locks, basically, who have like rating systems and stuff. And so he's comparing and contrasting the brands, right? These are the 3 biggest bike lock brands in the world. So cool. In the first 5 or 10 minutes I was doing my research, it looks like I came on this one first, and then I came across this one, and I guess there's a third one here. And then so I was like, what are the general characteristics of these? And something that this guy had mentioned, I believe in the review, or at least, actually, no, I think this was one of the negative reviews, was that the kryptonite lock, I'm sure this doesn't happen to all of them, but, he left it out in the rain once, and then boom, the lock would stick and it wouldn't open anymore. So not very weatherproof. Now, if you're like a bike commuter in Seattle, that would not be the lock for you, right? Because it's raining all the time, or you get mud in it. And can you just rinse it off, and will it just work after that? Will it keep working maintenance free? And so that was one of the considerations here. And I'm generalizing. I really hope I'm not saying wrong things. Like I said, depending on how big a purchase it is, I will do more or less research. So when I bought my TV, which was maybe $600 or so, I got it on sale because I do that too. I wait for sales, but I did a lot more research there because that's a lot more money. I'm not saying $100 for a bike lock isn't a lot of money. It certainly is, especially since some people try to get away with substantially less protection for their bikes than that. But I try to balance the amount of research I do with how expensive something is. So I'm not going to knock myself out, doing 2 hours of research if I'm buying $5 paper towels, right? But anyway, in so far as what I've read, Abus, the German brand, more expensive, might hold up in weather better. Kryptonite's good value, excellent value, a little bit less expensive than this. Maybe has a few more fit and finish things. It's manufactured. I think the manufacturing's outsourced, which to me is usually a good thing. It usually means the prices are lower for reasonable, similar, comparable quality. And then this one here is more like the budget. I'm generalizing, like I said, from the research I did, which means it's about half the cost of these two, but still pretty good quality. But I'm not particularly wanting, I can afford a somewhat better bike lock. And like I said, my bike's pretty expensive, so I do want to lock it up with something good. And so I was mostly debating between these two. I did, I think, end up deciding to go with this one because when I was comparing the 3 standard U-locks, I want a U-lock, like I said, a handy dandy comparison. Like I said, I like this site. Shout out to this guy. I was looking at the third-party ratings. Now, you want to make sure that they don't get like paid for doing reviews or ratings. That's something that it's unfortunately rampant in a lot of product review sites. They get paid for reviewing something, and then you really can't take them at their word because they have financial conflicts of interest. But these folks here who test the bike locks are, I don't have the tabs pulled up anymore, but I did look them up. Like they're legit testing parties. They don't get kickbacks from this and whatever. So you can see that the more budget brand only has a review from one of the people, which it's good. It's on the same level as these, right? And like I said, if you're looking for a lock and you don't have the budget, looks like this is a great option, right? But I was looking between these two brands. And so this brand, the Kryptonite one, has one more star from this reviewer or like this reviewing firm than this one. But you can see it's a full pound and like 1.25 pounds heavier. And the other thing was that this company, from the research that I've done tentatively, generally has like smoother operation in their keys and the reliability and stuff. So this was my research. I got here and I said, you know what? This one would be fine. I'd be happy with this one. This is the best, basically the best U-lock that this company makes. This is the best U-lock that this company makes. And they're both not that expensive. They're both good bang for your buck. I could do with either one of these. I think I did decide to go for this one just because it's about a pound lighter. And if I'm going to be lugging it around all the time, well, that's good for similar-ish security and perhaps handles wet weather better, which if I'm locking it out in the rain, well, kind of needs to handle that, right? So that was my thought process. There you go. This is the one I'm planning on going with. Next thing. Okay, so this isn't something I'm buying now. I do have this. This to me was my attempt to still be able to have my cake and eat it too, literally. So I have somewhat of a sweet tooth, but I've been trying to eat a lot healthier. And so the macros on this are pretty good. So you make it with, they changed the recipe, honestly, which I wasn't so happy about. But it's the same stuff, really, as what I was using before. I think the new thing calls for butter or coconut oil, and I still use avocado oil. You could also use something tasteless that's high in monounsaturated fats rather than polyunsaturated. But they're brownies, basically. But they're basically sugar-free brownies because they're sweetened with erythritol and stevia rather than sugar. So macro-wise, I pair these when I'm drinking my protein shake. And then, you can see per brownie, you get 11 grams of fiber and less than 2 grams of fat. Right. And so if I'm having 25 grams of protein when I'm drinking my protein, my chocolate milkshake with this, that's my dessert. And so my dessert, I get more than 10 grams of fiber and more than like 20 to 25 grams of protein. That's pretty good macros. And it tastes good too. So anyway, plug for this. I use it. I like it a lot. It is kind of pricey. That's the only downside. And you do have to bake it. So it's not like other desserts where you can just go to the store and buy it. But baking, it's not too bad. But I bought these things initially when I was baking them. So these are 8-inch square baking pans and they're silicone. And the reason why I got these was because they're cheap. They're super cheap. You get 2 of them for like, I think when I got it, it was like $10 or something. Now you have to be a little bit careful because if you have anything with liquid in it and you're not holding this carefully, you'll spill. So there's downsides and you have to, but they're really easy to clean too. That's the other thing. I've had pans before that have like seams in them, metal seams at the edges. that get stuff stuck in them, and then you can't get it out when you wash. So you can actually turn these things inside out, which makes them super easy to clean. So really cheap, easy to clean. Also, safe. Silicone is a cooking safe. You don't have to worry about plastics leaching into your food. So that's why I got these initially. But it turns out that I hadn't thought things through, because guess what? When I'm using this brownie mix, I can't mix it in the silicon pan because it's floppy. It flops around. So I can't mix it in the same pan that I bake it in, which means I get two things dirty every time I make my brownies. And so I was like, okay, you know what? That's not cool. So what I'm trying to do now is find a glass baking pan that's 8-inch square, because that's what the brownie mix calls for, and then use that instead, because then I'll just mix the brownie mix in the pan and I'm going to bake it in. I only get one thing dirty. It makes my life easy. And in fact, I'll just store it in the same pan too. And so this was my bright idea. If I can mix the brownies in the pan, bake the brownies in the pan, and then store the brownies in the pan, I only ever get one thing dirty. And that's really cool. So I decided I wanted a baking pan that had a lid. So you can see there's one here. I was looking at the options here and so, okay, I get two pans here for $17. I get one pan for $15 and no lid. I get one pan for $13 with a lid, right? Or I get like the Pyrex. Pyrex is one of the most, I don't want to give them more credit than is due, but it's like, I know of them a lot. I have a bunch of Pyrex containers myself, not because I think, ooh, I just love this company, but because, they're the glass container company that everyone knows of, right? So I was looking at these and I decided to go with this one here, just because it's exactly what I want. It's the brownie pan. Oh, oops, I don't know what I pressed there. I thought I clicked on the link. It's the brownie pan that has a lid so that I can store it in the same pan that I bake it in, that has nothing I don't want. So I could get the Amazon, I think I pulled it up here. Yeah, the Amazon 2-piece set. But the thing is, I don't really need the bigger pan for anything at the moment. And you could say, well, oh, you can make lasagna in it if you ever have people over or whatever. Well, but I don't at the moment. So I don't really want to buy things I don't need. I'm pretty big on minimalism. So even if I spend, so arguably, this gets me two pans for $21 is better than one pan for $13. But if I'm not going to use the other one, then I have to store it somewhere. And it's stuff that I don't need. And I don't like that. So that's why I'm going with the one. And then I was also comparing the ones that don't have a lid, but then I can't store it in the same pan. I mean, you could argue maybe you don't need to put a lid on your brownies, but I don't know, it keeps the air out. I think they keep better. So that was this purchase. A little bit rambly perhaps, but I want to be able to mix my brownies, bake my brownies, and store my brownies in the same pan, because then I have to do less dishes and I'm lazy. So that was the reasoning there. I've only got a couple more things. This is dragging on a little bit, isn't it? So I need to wash my car. I've been putting it off for a long time. And so to do that, I already have a bucket that I used for like soaking clothes if I stain them or whatever. So I have a bucket already. So that means I need sponges and car wash mix. So I go into Amazon and type in car wash sponge. And then I find the first one that gets me normal sponges, more than one of them for cheap, which is this one. Like that was the extent of my research. This is cheap, right? So I don't do lots of research here, because you say, okay, it's got a reasonable number of high-star reviews, and this is the one that gets me a bunch of sponges for cheap. And I'm sure, like if you were like a professional car washer, you'd have sponge preferences, but I really don't care. I just want to get the worst of the grit and grime off my car. So that was my thought process there. Like I said, I do a lot less research if it's cheap stuff. And then there's that. And then I was looking at the car wash solution as well. And here's the thing. I have gotten away with not washing my car for like 6 months. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I'm meaning to do it more regularly now. So I just don't need the solution. Some people are super uptight about it and they like wash their car every week or whatever. I'm not. I want to make sure that I don't get stuff stuck to it so that it like eats away at the paint and stuff like that. But that's about my standard. So I didn't want to buy something that was like tons and tons of solution, because then I'm never going to use it. And I have to store it somewhere. And maybe, actually, I don't know if soap goes bad. Maybe that's just a food thing. But anyway, I wanted to buy something smaller. Normally when you buy in bulk, you save money. But if I wasn't going to use it, I don't know. I just wanted something less big. So you can see I could buy a gallon here for $22, or I could buy something that's like 48 fluid ounces, which is substantially less than a gallon, for, $7. And so this is actually cheaper per fluid ounce. So I went with this one just because it's smaller. And again, I don't care. I'm sure if I were a professional car washer, or I washed like someone's Ferraris or their Lamborghinis or something, then I'd probably want the very bestest car soap. But for this, car soap is car soap, man, for my purposes. And so that's why I went with the cheap one that was not going to like be overkill because I don't need a gallon of soap if I have one car and I only wash it a couple times a year. Okay, so car soap. And then this one, I need a notebook that I can record my weightlifting stuff in. So you could argue, why don't you do it on a phone app? Well, and the reason for that is because it takes 2 seconds to write it down in a notebook, whereas I have to go pull up a spreadsheet and stuff on my phone. It's not as convenient. So big key thing, if you're working out in the gym, you need to be like on task when you're in there. You need to not goof off. If you want to make progress, you have to be increasing your weight over time. That's called like the progressive resistance, I think is like the jargony word for it. And I have been bad about this. I have been stuck on the same weight for bench press and squat for a while now, just because I haven't been super diligent in keeping track of, what's my weight, how many reps am I doing per set and stuff like that. And so I'm going to try to be writing it down every time I do something now, just to be more intentional in the gym. But I didn't have a notebook. So again, similar to the car soap, I don't need 16 of these things because I'm only going to be writing using a few lines every week. So if I go lift 3 times a week, I maybe go through a page in these notebooks like every 2 weeks or something. I don't need 16 of them. So, maybe you save some money overall because you get 16 for $12 versus 4 for $5. Yes, that's a better deal, but I don't need 16 of these things. That's why I'm going with this one. Okay. And this one is interesting. So I was looking for a lock that either I could set a timer or not a timer, that either had an app on the phone to let me lock myself out of something. Now, the use case for this, if I'm trying to focus on something, like I have a set of work I want to get done, I have filtering software set up on my computer to block me from certain websites or from certain things. But if I have another computer, like if I bring my work laptop home, and I'm trying not to avoid distraction, I need to be able to get rid of the work laptop because I can't set up software on that because I don't own it. I'm not an administrator on it. But if it lets me access the internet on my Wi-Fi network, and I have to have my Wi-Fi network, like it has to be on my Wi-Fi network because I have to telework from home, well, then I need a way to remove my access to it if I'm really trying to focus and I don't want to have any possibility of distraction. So some people might say, oh, well, you're going to such lengths. Why don't you just have a bit of self-control? And the thing is, I like the idea of just being able to completely remove the possibility because then it requires no willpower on my part to resist it. I'm just saying, oh, I locked up my work laptop. Now I can't access it. Like it requires zero willpower on my part to go resist opening it up and going and wasting time on say YouTube or whatever, instead of working on whatever I'm trying to do over the weekend. So, it's a Saturday this morning for me. And I have my work laptop at home because I brought it home to telework. And so if I have all of my stuff set up on my own computer to keep me from getting distracted, but I can just open up that computer and use that to get distracted, well, then that's no good. I need to remove my ability to use it. So I came up with a couple things here. I thought, one, I could just not bring it home. I could just not telework ever. That was kind of too harsh a solution for me. So I said, you know what? Let's see if I can figure out a way to remove my access to it, but just temporarily. So my first thought was, let me find a lock that has like an app on my phone, because then I can block myself out of that app on my phone. I have an Android smartphone and I use an app that lets me do that. However, it seems like any locks that have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, they all have these fingerprint readers. And that's not what I'm looking for, because I want a way to remove my access from it, not other people's. I want to lock myself out of it, but only for a short period of time. And so I said, okay, no bueno. All of these things have fingerprint readers. So the next thing I did was I went and searched for a smart lock. And then if you've never come across this is one of the more advanced type things you can do with search engines. I said, I want to find a smart lock that doesn't contain the word fingerprint in it. And so you see, I found some stuff. And then I was like, you know what? Wait. So I could buy a lock and then temporarily block myself out of the app that lets me open it on my smartphone. Isn't that basically a timer lock? So then I thought, what if I search for timer locks explicitly? And then I guess I skipped the page that had these. I found one. So, it's like a lock that has a simple timer on it. And then once you lock it, you lock yourself out. Now, if you look at this isn't going to keep anyone out of something seriously. And you might say, oh, well, Stephen, that's a bad thing. So I'm going to be smart and I'm going to lock up my wire cutters too. But if I ever really needed to get to my work laptop, like something's crashing and burning and they need me to come and work overtime on the weekend because, we have to deliver something to the customer and everything's broken. If I really needed to, I could just run to Walmart and buy a pair of wire cutters and I could get rid of it if I really needed to, right? The point is removing the easy access. is what I'm after. So I'm actually view this fact that if I can't get it open with my hands, that's good enough, because I don't want it to be like ridiculous, because I want to be able to get in if I really need to, right? But this is exactly what I needed to do. And it turns out that I don't need to get my smartphone involved at all, right? So I don't want to pay 40 bucks for a fancy Bluetooth Wi-Fi app that, like, I mean, I don't need the app on my phone. What's important to me is being able to remove my access to something for a period of time, right? And like I said, the main use case for me is when I'm trying to focus over the weekend. I want to get rid of the ability for me to just get around my own filtering with my work laptop. So there you go. I have no idea how long this video dragged on, probably like 30 minutes. So, well, if you listen through it, congratulations. You've now seen a whole bunch of the random products that I'm buying in the next week. But this is the sort of thing that I'm going to try to keep doing moving forward. And just going through the decision-making process that I do whenever I buy stuff. Again, part of this is just for me so that I can come back and refer to this over time. But also, if you ever wanted to buy whey protein powder or wet wipes or a bike lock or, I don't know, car wash sponges, you probably don't care about those, but perhaps you learned something if you were interested in any of these things too. So this is the first video, like I said, and I'm going to try to hold myself to doing this moving forward as well.